What's up, guys? We're ready to start on this project today. We're gonna go over some of the most common mistakes you'll make while painting. Although we won't cover every single one of them, let's go ahead and get started. So what we have today is an ES, a Lexus ES. We're gonna be blending the fender because we went ahead and repaired this damage on this bumper cover. Now our paint work is gonna be the whole side over here, which is the reason why we need to blend over here. Now, we probably could get away with a decent color match, but it will never look perfect unless we blend it. So on this side over here, we have just enough space that I'll be able to kind of blend my color into this intact. This is clear coat from the factory. This is paint from the factory. So we wanna make sure that we only come within this area. We don't wanna take our new paint all the way to the edge. And guys, I know some of you newbies might be like, well, you have the paint code, right? Why don't you just plug it in, you're good to go? Well, there's so many variances in the color that, and so many different ways that you can spray, techniques, air pressure, all that all plays a big factor in what happens with color. So in order to make sure it's 100% perfect, you need to blend. For the time it takes to just scuff up this fender, I'm talking maybe 10, 15 minutes. It will save your life and make the customer much more happier, and it looks good on you. So we're gonna go over getting this clean, sealing, base, pearl, all that. Let's get started. But before we get started, shirts just came in. They're available on the store as well as some other accessories. So I'm gonna find an XL because I am a big boy, and I'm gonna get this ready to go because this always helps me to paint a little bit better. And well, that is so much better. I feel good and I'm in the gear. So we're gonna go over cleaning right now, the most important part of the process before you start painting. So there's two types of cleaners. There's a water-based cleaner, and I'll use, we're using this one right here, and I'll leave something in the description that's similar. You can use spray-away glass cleaner, and then there's a solvent-based cleaner, which is gonna be something just like this. This is just a wax and grease remover. So I do use the microfiber towels. They are awesome. I take about maybe 3 or 4 jobs, and then I put them in the wash with the greaser. I go ahead and I use my water-based cleaner first. Now, the reason why you want to use water-based and not solvent-based first is because water-based takes a little bit longer to dry in these crevices, right? And also, it kind of leaves like a film on the surface, I feel at least. Solvent-based, it kind of strips everything and makes it nice and even. So go ahead, use your water-based cleaner first, and then you can follow it with your solvent-based wax and grease remover. And guys, don't be shy with this. Get this wet, nice and wet. That's the only way to get the contaminants up to the surface, and then we're gonna wipe in one direction across the panel, okay? This is a good time to keep inspecting, all right? Make sure you have off all those little marks. Even for white, black smudges are the worst. So what you're gonna wanna do once you're doing this is get yourself like a little piece of sandpaper. And this is like a little piece of K800, and I'm gonna go on any parts that I see that are dirty or need a little bit more sanding, and I'll just wipe them off. Now, this type of stuff is really supposed to be done before the car hits the booth, but you know, we're not gonna get every little thing, and sometimes the lights in the booth really do help you out to see the things that you can't see when you're outside. You wanna get these now, because if you don't, it's gonna leave a black smudge that you're gonna clear over, and you're gonna seal into the car forever, and that's no good. So now we're ready for our solvent. Now, another mistake people will use is using the same rag. I like to take 2 different rags, that way I know which one's for which. This one will be for solvent. And then for solvent, it evaporates much quicker, so we don't have to worry about any sort of cleaners hanging out in these little areas around the fog light covers, just waiting to come out on your fresh new paint job. Tell me about it. It is horrible when you're going to spray your bumper cover, any area on the car, and then water just comes out from any of these crevices. It is not fun. So make sure it's really nice and dry. Go over it a few times. And once again, on that fender, go ahead and get it all wet, and then take that same towel and move across the whole entire fender, making sure that we don't let any residue or any cleaner dry. We don't want any cleaner to dry, because if we do, that can cause fish eyes as well. So make sure you keep on wiping it until it's dry. Let's do it one more time. You cannot do this enough. Clean, clean, clean is the name of the game, especially for a white paint job that we don't want any smudges to be in. Now, did you see how ugly this bumper looks? We got primer, we have clear coat, we have some plastic. It looks horrible. We cannot put paint right over that. Let me show you a little closer of what's going on. Now, if we were to put paint right over that, we might have some shriveling or wrinkling of the paint right in these areas. Now, the reason why I kind of go a little bit more aggressive is because we are going to be using a sealer, right? And I sanded this with 320. I don't have to take my time with 400, 600, 800. I just go ahead, I'm gonna 320 this, I'm gonna get it nice and smooth, and then I take over this area, I'll do like an 800 because that's gonna be my blend. Now the sealer is a thinned out primer, right? So that sealer is gonna go over all these areas and it's gonna give me a beautiful, beautiful substrate. A substrate is a material underneath, like a barrier, a new platform for my base coat to lie on. A common mistake is you guys will just put paint right over something like this, and you don't want to do that. So our sealer actually consists of a white, a black, and all these colors that make different colors. But for you guys, all you have to do is go to your local store, and you can most likely get a black, a gray, or a white sealer, and you can go from there. Now, a question I know you have is, can I tint my sealer with just taking sealer, gray, and adding some red base coat to it? No, you can't. I do not recommend that. Although the color will change, you're adding a base coat formula mixture into something that shouldn't, and that's gonna take away the properties of what the sealer should be able to do. So this is our white sealer right here. Obviously we're using white because I have a white car. Now you notice in there we had a couple areas that were bare plastic, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a little adhesion promoter over those areas. This is what we're using. It's called Primer PO, which is pretty much a plastic primer. And guys, it's very light. Just go over it and let it be. That's all there is to it. We're ready for sealer. And before you seal, get yourself your tack rag. I'm just gonna go over the surface of the bumper itself. We just wanna go nice and slow. We wanna pick up any sort of debris we might find. And the same thing over here on the fender. So another common mistake we'll have is control of the gun, right? So I know that my sealer, it cannot go way over here. Otherwise, this area of the bumper is not gonna match the fender over here. So I have to make sure that I'm controlling my fan. I wanna make sure I'm bringing sealer right in this area only. So this will all get sealed. This over here will not get sealed because this matches up with the hood, and that's the same color. And this whole entire area will get sealed because the fender is going to get sealed. Now the next common mistake you're gonna make is not putting sealer on the fender. Yes, I've been there before. I put the same exact color on the bumper, but I don't seal the fender, and what happens is the fender doesn't match. Granted, it's not gonna match perfect because the bumper is plastic and this is metal. They reflect light differently. But when you put sealer on the fender, you again have the same exact substrate that is on the bumper. Sometimes these colors are transparent. Since they are transparent, okay, we think that we have enough color on here and we have enough color on there, but when we butt up, there's not as much base as we think. This way, with the same substrate, we can guarantee a beautiful match between fender and bumper. Now, please promise me you're not gonna do this. Please promise me, if you're just a hobbyist, you're not gonna buy a gun for sealer, base, and clear. One gun can do it all, okay? This is a CC500. I thought this gun was a joke, but I use it for everything. You can use any gun. You can use your Astro, you can use your Iwata. It doesn't matter. I particularly like this one because the fan isn't huge, all right? And I can control it in a smaller environment, what I'm about to do right here. And that's all there is to it. We're not gonna worry about the edge. I use slow reducer. And when you use slow reducer in your sealer, okay, you don't really have to worry about the edge being rough. If it is rough, you can still go over it with like 800 grit sandpaper just to make sure it's smooth, but we're gonna leave it. Another common mistake is rushing. Give this time. This is paint, right? We cannot allow this to just be ready to paint again with our base coat in 5-10 minutes. I'm gonna set my timer for about maybe 10-15 minutes. I'm gonna let this flash completely. If you wanna be safe, give it a good 20 minutes, go do something, and then that way it's nice and dry for our base coat. I'm sitting at around 20 minutes over here. It took a little extra time. Now, I'm gonna run my tack rag over here, and if it feels nice and smooth, I don't need to sand it. But if it was a little bit rough, it's no problem. You just take some 600 or 800 grit. This is our K series. I have it 600 right here, K600, and that would smooth it out. All you would do, I mean, I can even show you, it's not even a big deal, is just go over the surface if it was rough. But really, it's fine. I don't need to do it. Now, over in this area as well, it's good to go. I'm not too concerned about my pearl, but my base, I still need to keep it contained to this area because my base is gonna change the color more than my pearl is, okay? So I wanna make sure that I contain it. You can see it's nice and flashed, it's good to go. We only did one coat over here on the whole entire bumper, so we're ready for our base. So another tip, make sure you're shaking your base. Do not stir it because you'll never be able to get all those toners. Now, everything's measured perfectly, and if you try to stir it, you're not gonna get everything on the edges here. So give it a few minutes of mixing and make sure it's one uniform color. All right, so we're ready to base. Once again, I'm using the same gun. I break it down in between different substrates. So I don't break it down in between coats of base. Like if I'm doing 2 coats of base, I don't need to break it down. You can just let it sit or even clear, all right? It's not gonna harden up, but obviously between sealer and base, I'm breaking it down. Remember something, your paint jobs are only as clean as your paint gun is. So if you don't break this down every single time you're done using it, you cannot expect paint to not dry inside of this paint gun if it's drying on the car. It's going to happen. There's too many issues in paint to go wrong. Don't let it be something that you can help, all right? Let's start spraying some base. And one more thing, there is no miracle pressure. There is no perfect pressure. It is the pressure that you want, okay? I don't even look at pressure. I just look to see what the gun is doing, then I adjust. Half the time these regulators measure pressure differently. Your pressure and your regulator is gonna be different from mine. Look what the paint gun is doing and adjust accordingly. Remember, I'm not putting paint here. My paint on my fender matches my hood. If I put color here, it's not gonna match. I wanna work this area only. That's it. Walk away. Don't sit here all day. A big problem. Oh, we wanna put so much paint on the car. We don't have to get it all in one shot. Let the paint dry. Once the paint dries, right, what happens is it creates a barrier. If I put 5 coats on here back to back, it's just gonna keep soaking into itself. You create that barrier, now the next coat that goes on is gonna be able to cover, and it's gonna be able to give you better coverage so that you can be done in 2. Let it flash. Second coat, 10 minutes later, we used a white sealer. We only need 2 coats of base. That's all we need when we use a sealer. Second coat of base, all flash, right? We gave it 20 minutes, we're ready for our pearl. Pearl's not hard. When you're blending, you're gonna be able to match any pearl, right? So we ended our base right around here. Our pearl is gonna go about another 5 or 6 inches. It's gonna end in this area. Our pearl is transparent, so more coats mean the darker it gets. For me, I do a spray out card, but a good rule of thumb is around 2 coats of pearl. So I'm gonna do 2 coats, 1 here, and then I'm gonna give the whole entire bumper a coat of pearl. But remember, I'm gonna bring my pearl right in this area. I'm trying not to bring it to the edge so it still matches. Have you noticed how I haven't painted this up here? That will just get a clear coat finish, all right? So I'm gonna do 1 coat here, 1 coat here, 2nd coat here, 2nd coat here. I don't leave any flash time in between. Let's roll. All right, so the pearl just went down and we want a nice flat finish. Now, we can use that CC 500, but I do like my LPH 400 because we need a nice and flat finish on a Lexus. And if we wanted a little bit more orange peel, we'd use a Sada, but that's not the case here. I know the guys in the comments are gonna have fun with that. Hey guys, make sure you follow me on Instagram, paint.society. We like to meet a whole bunch of different painters and see what they like to use. And if you have any questions, I'm pretty good about getting back to you. So we're gonna allow that pearl and the whole base coat to keep on drying. We're gonna give it a good, I would say 15 minutes. Let the solvents flash off. We don't wanna trap them with the clear coat. If we trap them with the clear coat, what's gonna happen is we're gonna see these little solvent pops later on. So give it time. We got our clear mixed up. We're using a slow activator, okay? I have my clear right here. It's a slow activator. We're in sunny South Florida. It's got to be at least 85 degrees in the booth. Give that clear some time to breathe, all right? It's been about almost 15 minutes. And we're about to go in there. I'm going to strap it to the head. Watch the hand movements, guys. First coat, don't worry about getting everything on nice and glossy. Just get the paint on. Let's get into the booth and let's start. That looks great, guys, and thanks for coming along today. Now, guys, just remember, another common mistake you might make is sending it right to bake right away. Let those solvents come out, let it purge. I like to give it at least 10 minutes before I bake it, if you have to bake it. My recommendation to you guys is to slow down, to speed up. Yes, the car has to go, I understand it, but if you take just a little bit more time in the booth, I can guarantee you, you're gonna do that car once instead of the time it's gonna take to do it twice. Guys, if you appreciate the channel, you wanna check out the merch, make sure you go over to the website down below. We got a store of a whole bunch of merchandise, cool things that you might enjoy. Don't forget about the Instagram as well that I mentioned earlier. We're gonna go ahead and get this thing assembled and check it out. And the one thing I wanna remind you, the most common mistake that anyone does is they overthink this. So with that said, guys, this is Brian from Paint Society reminding you, don't overthink it. It's just paint. Let's go ahead and get it assembled and check it out.